Hi friends, welcome back to a new video this week. I thought we would try something new and I'd share with you what I've been doing in the kitchen and a few other things. So this night for dinner, I make what we call shepherd's pie, cottage pie, something along that variety. But what I like about this kind of meal is it's usually one I use up a ton of leftovers in. It's kind of like one of those clean out the fridge meals. And shepherd's pie or cottage pie I know has something typical ingredients in it, but I just use what we have on hand. And one of the things I needed to use up were a couple onions that I found going bad. These are onions I bought from a local farm back in the spring, very early summer, if that. And a couple of them have just decided to sprout. So what I do is just cut off the bad parts and keep going along with dinner. In this recipe, I do like to add a lot of onion. I'm not a big onion eater at all, but onion sometimes just adds an amazing flavor. And so I don't mind onion when it's cooked down, but you'll never see me eating raw onion. Now you'll notice I get my cast iron pretty hot and I really salt my onions. Salting the onions really helps bring out the moisture, and I think it just does this beautiful job of adding a little extra flavor. I'm using a pound of ground beef here. Any ground meat works. I've done this with sausage. I've also done this with just like lentils as a meat replacer because that's what I had on hand and that's what was easy. Lentils are, I feel like, a secret thing and they are so cheap to pick up. I added in here salt, pepper, garlic, and I forget what else, probably oregano, and just cooked up the meat. My meat wasn't fully thawed, but ground meat is so easy to cook up when it's still slightly frozen. So here I've added in some carrots, bell peppers, and a hunk of garlic. I had garlic from last garden start to go bad, so all I did was chop it up and add it in ice cubes with olive oil, and it just is an easy way to prolong it in the freezer. So here you can see the beginning of my leftover brigade. There was some leftovers from like a taco night, some leftover creamed corn, and I had mashed potatoes, and that's where I get that shepherd's pie type of dinner. This is one of my favorite things to do with mashed potatoes. Another thing is to add it into soups, and it makes like a brothy soup way more creamy and thick, and it's just a thing that you might not think of when making dinner. You can see my little shadow over there. That's Remy. He's my Australian Shepherd who is always 2 steps behind me and never lets me do anything without him. So as you go along, it's I feel like pretty self-explanatory. But cook a little bit, add in some stuff. Here I'm adding in flour. So the flour I'm using to kind of thicken up all the liquid in the pan, and you really want to cook the flour to get the most effect to thicken it up. Because I'm adding in here some broth to kind of make a gravy for the shepherd's pie. I believe I'm using chicken stock. It's chicken or turkey. I have a ton of that on hand. And here's where you can see me really adding in all of these leftovers now. Then I, of course, added in some peas. You can't have a shepherd or cottage pie without the peas. Peas are one thing we don't grow here just because of our weather. We are so hot so long that we only get a short window for peas. So snap peas we grow over shelling peas, and they're just a tasty treat for us. So when I make it, this is about how I do my mashed potatoes. I just chunk it on top. Could make them creamy and blend them up and add a nice swirl design, but most nights for dinner I am racing and just trying to beat the clock with a couple hungry kids and getting everything done. so we can eat dinner on time. So I just kind of smooth them out and call it good. But one thing you always have to add on top of a pie like this is cheese. I don't know what it does, but goodness gracious, cheese is just an amazing thing sometimes. Our family goes through a lot of cheese. One day it's my goal to make all my own cheese, but we're just not quite there yet. And there I am with a little bit more seasoning on top. Oh, I did thyme, not oregano. And I think this is the time that I forgot. I preheated my oven with everything. And there you go. That's a finished look at what dinner was. One pot wonder meal of the night. Little tip, if you pull a cast iron out of the oven, stick a pot holder on the handle. It will just be an easy way to remind yourself it's a hot pan.
Anyone else doing laundry and finding candy plates in their washer? Or is it just us in our house?
This night, it was a night where I was scrambling. So I took some leftover waffles with eggs and bacon, some cheese, and we made just breakfast sandwiches for dinner. It's such an easy go-to meal. Oh, I can't forget the oranges we had. They were good. Now, this night, I decided to go a little all out. I had planned the night before to make tomato pie, but the day just got to me. So here I am, working on a pie dough. My favorite pie dough is from Angela Turner on Instagram, and I will link her Instagram down below. Her pie dough has a whole bunch of butter in it. It's amazing. It's flaky. It has just a touch of sugar to it. I'm not one who honestly loves a ton of pie dough, but I love this one. Sometimes I feel like pie dough is just something's off, and this one is just so, so good. My butter was half frozen this day, so I really had to get in there with my hands and get it going. And this recipe does make 2 huge pie crusts, so you'll have plenty. So to make this tomato pie, slice your tomatoes and salt them. The salt will help draw out some of the moisture, and it just helps make your pie not soggy. This night I also decided to cook up some chicken thighs. So the chicken thighs are getting some olive oil, and then I used my husband's rub. So my husband makes this rub concoction. It is phenomenal. It is like our go-to for so many meals, and we make it by a big, huge jar. So my little one was almost out, so I went and just got the big jar and slathered these chicken thighs with it. And I'm cooking it up with the skin on, so the seasoning really soaks into the skin. The skin gives that little bit of fat and flavor to the rest of the thighs, and I just baked them. Super easy dinner. All right, let's make the filling for this tomato pie. It's a very easy, simple filling. It's garlic, mayonnaise, and cheese. That is it. Now tonight I'm using some sharp cheddar and some shaky Parmesan cheese, the shaky can of cheese. It's what I have on hand. Ideally, you might want to use the real Parmesan, but you know what? This is all Sam's Club had one day, so we're working our way through it. And it is a generous helping of cheese. There is a recipe I will link below from Becky at Acre Homestead. She has a blog called Scratch Pantry, and it has a really good recipe if you'd like to follow one, if a recipe is for you. My pie is pretty similar to hers. There's only a few differences, but it is such a good dinner, you guys. This is something you could probably add some meat in and serve this as an appetizer or as a side. It is not filling enough to be like main course, but it is a delicious, delicious thing. Back to the pie dough. One thing with this pie dough, I will say, is you really want to use some flour because of the amount of butter in it. It can stick to things. Now I had some extra left over, so I'll show you what I did with it. But at this point, I am blind baking my pie. And then I am adding my salted tomatoes and then layering our filling and repeating until I bake. So I will link the recipe down below so you can follow, but you basically layer it, bake it, and it comes out looking this beautiful. It is seriously, seriously delicious. I mean, here you go. One more shot. It's just layers of mayonnaise, cheese, and tomato in a pie crust. Who knew it could be so good? And then for my leftover pie dough, I took a couple hunks of Hershey's chocolate and wrapped it in the pie dough, and I covered it with an egg wash, and I added a little bit of salt and sugar to the top. It just makes this delicious, crunchy, flaky, chocolatey dessert, almost like crunchy chocolate croissants, but pie dough wise, they were so good, such a delicious treat. And I just baked them till they looked done at 350 for maybe about, 15-20 minutes.
Sit here and eat it all day.
You could sit here and eat it all day. You like this tomato pie? Uh-huh.
The next night for dinner, I dug out a soup from the freezer and defrosted it. And when I did, it ended up being pretty dang bland. So I added some beans, some corn, a whole bunch of taco seasoning, and jazzed it up as like a combo between taco soup and chili. It was really good with some fresh bread, and it filled bellies. And that's all that mattered. And sometimes it's fun reimagining something you stuck in the freezer. So this served us a couple of dinners and a couple lunches. It was a full pot and very hearty.
One of the things I am going to be adding into my freezer are sweet potatoes. So this is 80 pounds of big ol' hunkers. So a box of these will be stored in our laundry room, food storage. We will eat through them. And then one box will go into the freezer. So it'll be sliced, prepped as diced sweet potatoes or sliced for fries. Either way, just quick, easy things to fill in to meals. And I have this guy who's hanging out with me. He voted not to go outside and play with the kids.
Outside, I have quite a few plants I really, really need to go get in the ground. These are plants that will be for my fall garden. I had way more extensive plans for my garden, but I am going to have surgery this fall, so things are just a little wonky. I am making sure I plant things that will be easy on my husband so he can help me harvest them because he knows that my garden is important to me. And right now we are having no rain in South Mississippi, so our bug pressure is ridiculous. You'll notice a bunch of holes in my plant. And this day I am putting away some things from the dehydrator. This is okra. I do end up filling this whole jar. I dehydrated a whole bunch of okra this year to throw into soups and stews and gumbo, whatnot later on in the year. Okra is one of those vegetables I feel like is hard to preserve unless you basically bread it and freeze it. But I wanted a few vegetables that were all shelf stable. And we like soup, and okra goes great in soup. So that is one easy way to put away stuff from the garden. Another project from the dehydrator is some mint. So I've almost filled up this whole pint jar this year from my little garden. I ended up putting away mint, catmint, and lemon balm, and something else. I can't remember now. All from the garden this day, and I'm just slowly filling jars as I go along. I want to one day have a whole bunch of teas and herbs saved up from my garden. It's just a little goal. I really enjoy tea, and I love seasoning my food with herbs. So you can't go wrong with fresh stuff from the garden.
Today ended up being bread day. I've got so much. Here is a set of brioche. I was making it for a barbecue yesterday and time got away from me. So I stuck the dough in the fridge and I rolled it out while it was still cold. So it has about an hour, maybe longer, to rise. We'll see how it bakes up. Not my best brioche. And then here is 6 loaves of sourdough bread. I'm trying to get ahead on some bread making. We'll see if I actually do or not. Not my prettiest loaves, but it sure comes out tasty. So they will all bake at 375. The loaves go for about 40 minutes. These go for about 15 to 20 minutes. And it's delicious. One more thing checked off my list. I cover them with a couple clean towels to let them rise. Keeps any, house creatures out of them. And I'll bake them, when I get around to it. It's 2 p.m. now. I will either bake them in about an hour or it will wait till after our Azure pickup. Today was our Azure pickup day. If you've never heard of Azure Standard, it's a really cool co-op online grocery store where you can buy things in bulk or not so much in bulk. I like it because I can get things there that I cannot get locally for me, like flour. Flour's been a big issue living here. We just can't get good quality flour. So let me show you what I got. I don't always get a ton. I usually get little things, and it's what I need to fill in what I can't get locally. But what's cool about Azure is you basically select your drop-off point or your pickup drop-off, and yeah, that's what they're gonna make. My kids are watching a baking challenge. They think it's so cool. No, nothing happened. So what you do is you select your drop-off, you pick your items, you pay, and then you'll get an email about when to pick up at your drop-off. You meet a semi-truck. At ours, we all meet, all help unload, grab our stuff, and go. And today it took maybe 30 minutes total, and we got there early, so it was awesome. Let me show you what I got. First things I got is Country Safe. It is a powder laundry soap. I wanted to try this out since it's free of pretty much a whole bunch of things. Some Pomona's pectin to try out. So many people talk about it, but I've actually never tried it, so I wanted to try that. Turmeric. Turmeric is super hard to find locally for us, so I grabbed a pound. This will last me probably a year. And then I saw someone else do this, so I grabbed it. It's cheddar cheese powder. So you could basically make your own boxed mac and cheese with this, no problem. I'm also thinking as a popcorn topping. It just sounds delicious. I grabbed some of this 13 bean mix. It's a Fiesta medley. This was like an impulse purchase. It sounded so good. And then they always give you down here at the bottom one of their flyers. And then over here, I got 3 big bags. This bag is upside down. It is hard white wheat. This is hard white wheat. This is, what am I trying to say? You can grind it for flour. So these are the wheat berries. I also got hard red wheat. So red wheat and white wheat mixed together is basically all purpose. One is good for more pastries. One is good for more regular bread. And then I got 50 pounds of flour. So that's all I got.